Hello, what up? It's John, your movie madman, and I'm back. Today, we're going to talk about my number one film. Alright, don't get me wrong. This is not my top favourite film of all time. This is the one below that. It's the one below that, so it's my number one. Understand? Right. Now, we're going to be talking about this. Watchmen. Alright. This is what we're talking about today. The film, that is. Not the HBO show. If you guys have seen the HBO show, it's actually quite good. It's a good little take. It's almost like a sequel to this movie. And it's an interesting modern take on vigilantes and stuff like that. So I actually thought the Watchmen show was actually quite good. So a good thumbs up to that. But I haven't got that, so I can't show it to you. I have got this, which is the graphic novel that this film is based on. Now, I'm very aware that a lot of people aren't fans of Watchmen, alright? Are you surprised that my favourite film is a film that you don't like? Probably not. I don't like a lot of films that you guys love, so I've said it before. I have a tendency to dislike a lot of films that people love. Like I have a tendency to love a lot of films that people dislike. I'm very sorry, I don't do that on purpose. A lot of people watched the film that was based on this graphic novel and they were like, oh, it's really boring. But I don't know if you know much about this comic, but I watched the director's cut when I decided to read the comic along with the film, and it was literally like reading the storyboard for the film as it was playing. So if you read the comic and you didn't like it, then I'm not sure why you watched the film. If you read the comic and you did like it, then you shouldn't find the film boring, basically, because the comic and the film are pretty much exactly the same. So that's just a little intro for you. Right, so there are 3 different versions of this movie. If you guys know much about Zack Snyder, he's the guy that made this. He loves his long film. I mean, this is the theatrical cut. You can only get the theatrical cut on Blu-ray. Well, you can probably get it on DVD as well. You can't get the theatrical cut on 4K, basically, is what I mean. The theatrical cut itself is 2 hours and 42 minutes long, and that's the shortest version of the film. So believe me, I understand if people watch this and they say it's boring. I really understand, but that's not, I don't find it boring because I love that it's not just a comic book film that is about full-on in-your-face action. There is a lot of development to story, there is a lot of development to characters all the way through the film. That's why it's so long. 2 hours and 42 minutes. And that's just the cinema version. There's nothing really interesting inside. I mean, there's a digital copy which is expired, and there's the disc there with some special features as well. But yeah, all in all, I'll probably say this is the worst version, and that's not because I don't like it. But the first time I saw this in the cinema, I thought it was boring. So if you think it's boring, then I understand, because I used to think it was boring as well. And then I went through a phase, I think a couple of years ago, when I wanted to watch all of Zack Snyder's films again. And I was like, I've just got to sit through Watchmen again. And that was when I watched a different version, which I'll talk about in a minute. And I just fell in love. And I very rarely fall in love with films. That's not true. I fall in love with films all the time. But I was really in love. This was like straight to the top of my list. The second time I watched it, it was right up there in my number one spot. And that was before I put the one above it. Right, so that's the theatrical cut. Then you've got the director's cut. I got this as a steelbook as well, actually. One of my friends pointed this to me on Zavvi. If you go onto Zavvi.com, I picked this up for like £8.99, which is remarkable considering it's going for like 25 quid on Amazon. And I got this for £8.99, so it's got a really nice yellow disc inside. It's got a really nice inside cover there as well. And this version is 186 minutes long. So that's 3 hours and 6 minutes. That's about 3 minutes shorter than Titanic. This version, I say, is better than the theatrical version because there's more of that detail in there. If you didn't like the theatrical version because there was too much detail, you're not going to like this version because there's more detail. But I didn't care. I think the more detail is what you need. There's more character stuff in there. There's a lot more explanations to like what characters do and why and things like that. So that really sat well in my books as well. And then, last but not least, this is a very interesting one for you actually. You got the Ultimate Cut. Now this physical copy of the Ultimate Cut I have in 4K. This is the first ever 4K disc that I bought. I got this imported from America because look, if you look inside, you've got the Ultimate Cut in 4K there, and then on this side you've got the director's cut on Blu-ray as well, which is pretty good. But this, I got this from America because I really wanted to see it in 4K, and I just really wanted to own the Ultimate Cut as well. But you could only get it from America at the time. But American discs in 4K play on British players as well, so that was why I bought it. This version is basically, this is the director's cut, and then what Zack Snyder's done is he's taken, there's an animated short film that is like based on one of the side comics inside the comic, if that makes sense. So it's a comic inside a comic, which is what he's done here. He's basically taken a animated short film and snipped it up and plonked it in different segments all the way through the film. So this version is 3 hours and 35 minutes long. Yes, that's 3 hours and 35 minutes long, so that's quite a long movie. But out of all of them, this is the version that I saw the second time I watched it. I knew it was 3 hours and 35 minutes long, and I was like, fuck it, let's just do it, let's see what it's like. And it was absolutely amazing. I watched it on my phone as well, I believe. That was how desperate I wanted to see it. I was like, I've just got to see what it's like. As soon as I read about this animated bit that was in it as well, I was like, I want to see that version. And it absolutely blew me away. I've got one more here. This is the Ultimate Cut again. This is the BBFC version that was released a couple of years ago. This is the 4K edition as well. Jokingly, I said to one of my friends that I wanted this for Christmas, and she bought it for me. I literally nearly started crying when I opened it, and I was like, I can't believe you spent that much money on me for Christmas. It's got the special features disc is like in this separate case. Look at that. It looks nice, doesn't it? Can you see that? That's just the special features disc. That comes in a separate like little case thing that's inside there. It's also a really nice steelbook as well, so it's got a nice front and a nice back with pattern of Rorschach's mask as well. If you look inside here, there's all these like art cards of different characters. I'm not going to go through all them because we'll be here for ages. There's a sticker which I could stick somewhere, but I'm not going to. There's the Ultimate Cut right there in 4K. There's also the Ultimate Cut on Blu-ray as well, so if you haven't got a 4K player, you can still have the Blu-ray, and there's Rorschach's mask in there as well. So 4K wise, like picture wise, it's very grainy. Not that that's a bad thing, but when you're inside, you definitely can sense that grain. I wouldn't take that away from the film. It's still an amazing, beautiful movie. Contains strong, bloody violence. So they're swearing about the violence again. Naughty. I love watching this anyway, so I think it still looks better than the Blu-ray. I'll tell you that. If you've got the Blu-ray and you want to upgrade to 4K, upgrade to 4K. Because you can only get the Ultimate Cut in 4K, so you get the whole thing anyway. So if you like the film, it's definitely worth seeing in 4K. Don't expect it to blow you away. It will blow you back, but you won't go flying, if that makes sense. There's like close-ups of people's faces look good, but it's a very darkly lit film anyway. So because it's very darkly lit, that just brings the grain out a little bit more. Not that there's anything wrong with grain. It was just a bit grain heavy. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have a problem with that. I would still watch this version any time, even though it wasn't the 100% amazing 4K that I wanted it to be. But it's still a good 75-80%. So it's still amazing in my eyes. One of the things I think that is pretty spectacular about this film is his use of slow motion. I don't know if you know much about Zack Snyder, but his slow motion is absolutely great. The way that he uses slow motion, I think, is beautiful. So I'll give that a thumbs up. Zack Snyder has grown to be one of my favourite directors over the years as well. After seeing his version of Justice League this year as well, that was pretty phenomenal. I really liked that. And that was longer than this. That's like 4 hours long. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's too long and it's just exactly the same as Joss Whedon's version. Let's have a think about that for a minute, right? How is it exactly the same as Joss Whedon's version when Joss Whedon's version is 2 hours long and his version is 4 hours long? So there's at least 2 hours of that. That isn't the same as Joss Whedon's version. There's also reports that there's only 25 minutes from Joss Whedon's version that's in his version, and they're the bits that he shot, because don't forget he was on the set of Justice League and he shot some of it before he had to poo off and deal with family issues. So he kept those bits in there, but nothing that Joss Whedon shot is in there. So it's not really like Joss Whedon's version at all if you think about it like that. So maybe you should think about that, because it's not. Really annoys me when people say that his version of Justice League is just the same as the other version, because it isn't. There's 25 minutes out of a 2-hour film in this version. So it's not really all of it, is it? Because that's 25 minutes out of 4 hours. So that's 3 hours and 35 minutes of his version in there. So, in fact, technically it's all his version, because that 25 minutes from the original Justice League is his 25 minutes anyway. So, anyway, I'm going to go now. Give this video a like and a subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That would be great. I love Zack Snyder. I'm just going to close with that. And please come back.